And yeah,
All right, and all those in favor? Aye. All right, we're moving quickly. So we are now at the point where we would like to do a quick round of council reports and committee assignments, any report outs from committee assignment. So I'll start to my right tonight. So Jack, I'll start with you.
I don't have anything to.
Okay. And I just have a very brief one to mention that the private security that we are hiring to augment law enforcement is scheduled to start in May. I don't have an exact date yet. And then I think I have an upcoming committee meeting, but it's in a couple of days, so no report for that.
So I attended the Redwood Region Economic Development Corporation this month, and I just sort of point this out to my fellow counselors who are also part of JPAs for all kinds of boards. There's a group called the Core Hub, sort of run through the Humboldt Area Foundation, but their mission, I'm going to just read it here. Core Hub provides community engagement, technical assistance, and an equity and justice lens to help our community transition built and natural systems to a decarbonized and resilient future. So it's a pretty lofty goal. But really what they're doing is they're going to all of the public agencies and moving our county forward with sort of an environmental and an equity and a justice lens. So I bring this to your attention. Hopefully they make it. They're doing the rounds. It's a grassroots organization, like I said. And I just want to make sure that I hope that they hit all of our different agencies. And so that was at Redwood Region Economic Development, Transit Authority, kind of business as usual. No real updates other than we're still sort of leader in the state in this area for headed towards fully electric and or hydrogen fueled buses. So we are literally leading this part of the state in getting resources to move to a completely hydrogen or solar fleet for our transportation, with the potential then to also fund or to meet the needs of things like UPS and FedEx and other delivery type organizations that require a lot of fuel. So, but that's just a general, that's all I have.
Thank you.
I'll just report that we are going to have the trail meeting next week. So we're going to get back to the work we've done on trails with this last meeting. So this will come up next week. So next month we'll have an update on trail information.
All right, thank you, everyone. So next we would ask our city manager, Eli, to give us the latest staff report and law enforcement.
Okay. So I did prepare a staff report that's included in the packet. First of all, Angela Cather, who happens to be on the Zoom call and will plan on being at our meeting next month, has come back to the city, started on March 27th. So we're glad to have her back, working with Becky, trying to continue the fine grants tradition that our city does for a small city. And we have mentioned the Forest Moon Festival, and Jennifer from our staff is also working on this with the Film Commission. This will be happening June 2nd and 3rd throughout Humboldt and Delaware counties. And it's to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Star Wars film Return of the Jedi, which was filmed in both counties. And basically the forest moon of Endor is Humboldt and Delaware counties. And it also happens to be the weekend that we had our yard sale planned. So we're going to be coordinating that together. And then Jennifer's contacting the various businesses. And then also in the staff report, it does give the forestmoonfestival.org website, as well as a Forest Moon Festival Facebook page and an Instagram at Forest Moon Festival. And then they're planning on showing the movie also at certain places, which will be for free, because that's how the Lucas Films wants. They don't want to have us making money off of the film, but we can do things for free. And then Cal Poly Humboldt had one of their classes that does drinking water and designing water plants and so on, meaning water, drinking water. It's not just watering plants. So, but anyway, they toured the water plant this afternoon. There were 21 students along with the instructor. So they spent about an hour and a half at the plant. And then the stormwater project, we've got the well water. There's a well monitoring. A well monitor that, or otherwise referred to as a monitoring well. So that's been installed. And then we're going to be doing a rainwater catchment added to the stormwater project, as well as the storm water line on Van Wyck, improving that. And then as far as the law enforcement, Lieutenant McCall is out of town today, but he did stop by yesterday and gave us some information about the stats. And also the stats are included in the packet, and they were highlighted to show the ones that are actually in the city of Trinidad versus the ones that are outside the city. So that was a very nice feature that has taken place through the sheriff's office out of the McIntyre station. Also, they're doing tracking and trying to separate the ones that are city of Trinidad versus the greater Trinidad area, just to give us a little bit better information. So hopefully that'll help. And at least from the data that he got from the month of March, showing the total of 28 items that were taking place in Trinidad versus others that were beyond the city limits. And that's it that I have right now. I'll help entertain any questions anyone might have.
Questions for you?
So Eli, did you mention the website update?
I didn't mention that because Cheryl mentioned.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Yeah, we're still working on the website update. They're saying now 12 to 16 weeks. So, but we're gonna see if we can move along and faster.
And I'm sorry, Cheryl mentioned about Pacific Security.
I did, yeah.
So yeah, she didn't mention about the website. So yeah, I put in there to be complete either by July or August. So when you take out the number of weeks that they are projecting, it'll be sometime in that range.
We'll do everything we can to keep it moving. All right, any other questions for Eli? Comments? All right, so I'll go to the public. Are there any public comments regarding the staff report? Please come up to the podium if you would, and if you're comfortable, state your name and where you're from. That would be great just for the public record. Thank you.
My name is Jane Volkmar. I live at 393 Northwest Stadium Drive, just outside the city limits, and I'm a water customer. I'm here for other issues I was interested in that were on the agenda, but this is an item that is not on the agenda. And it might seem like a small thing to you folks, but when you think about the whole fabric of society and how our town works, I think this was of interest. My two friends and I were sitting in the White House having dinner. We happened to look out the window and we saw a resident who we know of the city take that person's garbage and recycling and drive up to the rubbish cans that are right next to the bus stop in Trinidad, which I understand are maintained by the city staff. And dumped that person's household garbage, quite a big bag, stuffed it into the garbage can, and also stuffed in the recycling items, at least they were separated. But, logic would say that if everyone in the city did that, those cans would be full. It's a conversation I had quite often with a gentleman who has died, but everyone in Trinidad loved him. He was so large and boomer. He carefully walked his garbage down every day, even putting in Murphy's cans. But if everyone in the city did this, it wouldn't have a big problem. And aside from the logic part of it and the courtesy, the manners part of it, I'm wondering what the city council feels about those behaviors, and are there any ordinances against using the city garbage cans as household garbage? Now, I am upset because Humboldt sanitation, of course, is always raising prices. But I suck it up and pay $40 a month for my garbage and recycling, and I'm wondering why this person wouldn't be able to do the same thing. So thank you for your interest.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Other comments regarding the staff report?
So I didn't, right, stop. Trinidad.
Deputy.
Anyway, Eli, I didn't see the sheriff report in the minutes. You just gave it, but you didn't print, you didn't print it?
It's in the packet.
The regular sheets are in the packet and they're highlighted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to back, I just
Right.
got it. So, Friday, we met Chase Kiriko. Okay, and I was going to do it. So he is the sheriff out of McKinleyville that comes up here, and he's coming up on weekends. I invited him tonight to the meeting, and I told him about the ordinance, the dog ordinance, and we would be discussing different remedies. And he said that he would check it. He would warn and he would check it. After you guys get the ordinance settled. A really nice person. And the reason he isn't here tonight is because he is a t-ball coach. So he couldn't come up and lives in the area. But anyway, I will give Dave this card and he can copy the number for you. Because when we have different issues, we need to be able to get a hold of the sheriff, not just leave it to the city. And then, he said he would track different things that he does. And I guess, Eli, how do they do that? How do they track what goes on? They wait for the report at the end of the month to track the, incidents they take care of?
That's what we find out is
At the
the
end.
report. But beyond that, if there's something that's out of the ordinary, then they normally or should be bringing it to our attention.
Okay. And then someone in the city this week suggested that when they come to town, they call and they say, hey, we're in town, because, we've gone on for years and not seen them. I knew the 8:30 group that used to circle the city. I'd be watching the Today Show, drinking my coffee, and then they'd be circling the city at the same time. Monday. So
So you're saying,
anyway, I just wanted you to know that this guy, Chase, you want to get a hold of him and nurture him.
thank you, Diane. That's great. More law enforcement contacts, the better. So we really appreciate it.
Well, no, I want that in there. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Other comments about the staff report? I've seen that online, but you guys keep me honest if I miss anything. And I think we've heard from everyone in the room. So with that, I will move on to the next item, which is items from the floor. So this was the point in time where members of the public are invited to come and speak for, up to around 3 minutes on anything that's not on tonight's agenda. So if there's anything you want to speak about and just let us know about that's not on tonight's agenda, please raise your hand or come to the podium.
I answered the question, but I wondered if you all had a response.
If what now?
I'm curious if you had a response to anything I said.
Okay. So one of the things about one of the things about comments from the floor, if they're not agendized, we don't necessarily have a response. It's taking it in and it may come up later as we look at future topics. That is something we want to explore. But we've definitely heard you and yeah, we'll keep an eye out. All right, so with that, I'd like to move on to tonight's consent agenda and see if there's any changes that anyone from the city council would like to make to the consent agenda. If there's anything you want to pull for discussion, I see nothing. Public, are there any members of the public that would like to see anything from tonight's consent agenda pulled for discussion? Right, then I will bring it back to the city council.
Move to approve consent.
Second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so tonight's consent agenda is approved. And that will take us to our discussion and action items for tonight. So we're going to start with a discussion and update regarding the recent dog attack incident and actions that have been taken by the city in response. And of course, we're going to want to get public feedback on this item as well. So I just want to say, I want to ask Eli to give us a staff update, an update on this. But then I would also, I wanted to give Mr. Pease a heads up because I would also like him to add any color that he would like to add before we then have a discussion with the city council, and then we'll open it up to public comments. So I just wanted everybody to know kind of the process that we have in mind. And with that, Eli, maybe I can turn it over to the.
Thank you. Yes, so ever since we found out about several incidents that have happened since summer until now, we were trying to find ways to be proactive and to try to address these issues because we don't want to see any of our residents or community members or visitors be attacked by a dog. That's the last thing that we would want to see. So we do have a leash law, and it's a combination of a couple parts of our ordinance. And so we did send a letter to all the residents and water customers to reiterate some of these things. The letter also appeared in the Mad River Union. And then the Times Standard today had mentioned that we were having this on the agenda today. So the letter itself was basically trying to reinforce the fact that we do have a leash law. And we mentioned in the letter that we were going to be getting some signage, and the signage did arrive today. So this is what the sign is. And so it says dogs must be leashed at all times, and TMC, the Trinidad Municipal Code section, is cited on there. So we ordered 50 of these signs. They will be placed at the trailheads. They will also be placed at the dog waste stations. And we are going to put some of these around where we do have the street signs. So we didn't want to add extra street posts and so on because people don't like too much signage in the city. But we made these what I call pedestrian friendly. So it's a smaller sign intended for people who are walking on the sidewalk where they would be walking their dog, to remind them that they need to have their dogs on the leash. We're also going to be having signage for any of the STRs that have dogs that are permitted to stay at that STR. So we will have signage there. So in addition to that, in the letter, we reminded residents that owners and tenants in the city need to have dog licenses. And also the fact that the leash law has a fine attached to it. The first violation is $100. The second violation is $200, and the third violation is $500. So in addition, between the sheriff's office and our addition of Pacific Coast Security in May, and then eventually the Community Ambassador Program, they will all be utilized to, between enforcing leash laws, informing the public of the leash laws, and reporting any incidents that they witness. So in the letter, it's spelled out that dogs off premises must be under control of the owner or other responsible person, either by leash, cord, chain, or other physical restraint. And in the staff report, we did note two of the incidents, which one is Catherine Burleson's dog being attacked near the state beach in the fall by a pack of poodles. And since then, that pack of poodles is no longer welcomed in the city. Unfortunately, has not been seen in the city. I know they're being followed by the Del Norte Animal Control. So hopefully that is being addressed properly. And the other one is with Ted Peace and his wife and their dog. And then a hearing was held last Thursday. The dog owner who was a tenant is and the dog are no longer in the city. And as far as I was told from animal control, they don't believe that they are in the county, but they are tracking that to make sure that that's not the case. I think that sort of covers everything that I had included in here. So I'll welcome any questions that the public might have.
Thank you. I was thinking what we'd do is ask Mr. Pease to add anything that he would like to add to that, and the city council will some discussion, and then we'll go to public.
Thank you. Good evening. Well, you've all heard the tale, so I'm not sure what else to add. Mark Riddell, who was a tenant in Wagner, has skipped town. We don't know if he skipped the town. And this brings up a couple of points that I guess I'd like to make just about the ordinance in the county, and I hope that the city can think about this. The dog in this case was quarantined first at the residence over here, and then at the shelter, and then the animal control gave back to the owner about 2+ weeks ago, without telling anybody. And so of course there's nothing keeping the dog in town, and there's no way to sanction an ATV from the sheriff's department. And if there is, so that's one thing. It's just that there's been no mechanism, and as far as I know, there's no criminal citation against the owner for negligence, and there's no way to get any kind of accountability, nor from the poodle owner last fall. So these are problems. Law enforcement, it seems to me, the ordinance is not, or the execution of the ordinance is not kept up with the reality of the situation. So that's the main thing. The hearing on Thursday. At the hearing on Thursday, the dog was judged to be vicious, which was actually a surprise to me, because my understanding was that lacking a direct attack on a human to corollary damage, according to animal control, that doesn't usually happen. But in that case, a dog that was judged to be vicious is supposed to be constrained all the time. That is, if he's outside the house, he's supposed to be in a cage, and I don't believe he's supposed to walk on the street. Again, I'm not clear on that. So there, I mean, this was a tragic thing that, frankly, I don't know how to say this and make it not sound stupid. I'm glad it was us as opposed to some other people who could have been on the streets of Trinidad. I'm looking at Katie and little Lucy, and things might have been, that dog is one bite. And Katie's got a nice big stick, but I don't know you know. So I thought it was you, but I'm also glad it wasn't a lot of other people here. So that's one thing. The city's response, I mean, you guys have been great trying to figure out how to deal with this. Because I just point out that this isn't a leash issue. A leash law wouldn't have done anything, or enforcement of leash regulation would not have done anything about this dog. This is a case of human negligence letting the dog run loose. Unfortunately, the people who had been experiencing this dog at the end of Wagner, and there are at least 2 or 3 residents down there, never got around. Well, I don't want to put it that way. We complained to the landlord, but there was never a complaint to the city or to animal control. So there's no paper trail. If there had been, then animal control would have had some other options in terms of enforcement, in terms of their responses. Brenda and I are both sorry to see Trinidad come to this, because one of the great things about this town is that it is a dog-friendly place, and there are a lot of people with animals, and a lot of very good dogs run around off leash. So I hope that this doesn't constrain people too much, or penalize the wrong kinds of people, or the wrong people who are responsible dog owners. There are a lot of people. There's a morning dog group down on the beach, on Trinidad State Beach, and they've been doing this for years. They have been a problem. I know a couple of people who walk dogs off leash around town. They've never been a problem. That's not the issue. There's a lot of traffic up and down to the beaches, down Parker Creek, and of course onto the State Beach, of people who come and go, and that's going to be a challenge to track people. Thing I guess I'd say is this. I guess it's the same thing. It's a question of enforcement. When you know something has happened, what can and will the county and the city do in terms of holding humans responsible? That and my stumpy little finger. That's what we'd like to see happen. In the case of Mr. Brodell, who's obviously guilty, he knows it. That's why he fled. Sorry that he got out before the authorities could find him or cite him or something. But that's, if you have questions of me, you've all heard the stories. So
we may have some questions. Is there? Yes, please.
What about compensation from this whole thing? Your injuries, your dog's injuries. How has that been covered?
my credit card's good.
So you've got no way.
If Mr. Burdell ever shows up and can be held accountable, he's the guy who's responsible.
Thank you.
But no, at this point, not.
Any questions for at this point?
I really do want to thank. I mean, the city's been great, and all the cards and letters and well wishing, and Cheryl even showed up for the hearing, so that's the support staff. I like that.
Fortunately, the dog owner did not, so we were disappointed about that. But I mean, I think it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I think I speak on behalf of everyone that you have our utmost sympathy and empathy, and we're, I think, mutually horrified at what happened to you and Brenda. And anyway, we'll keep working on doing as much as we can to prevent this from ever happening again. So I appreciate your working with us on that. All right, Supervisor Jordan, did you want to make some comments before we discuss as a council? I thought you might want something to add from the county.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, very unfortunate, and it's not the first time these things happen, right? Ted talked about a number of things, and it all starts with responsibility, right? Because you can have all the laws in the world you want, but if they're not enforced, or if people disregard those rules, then you've got a problem, right? And you see this all the time. We're having more and more instances on the Hamlin Trail in McKinneyville and in other park settings. And you classically get these dog owners say, "Oh my God, don't worry, he's just charged at you in a vicious way, but don't worry, he doesn't bite, he doesn't, there's all these excuses that you hear around that." Currently, the sheriff is the only one in the county that can take owners for being off leash other kinds of things. So I'm working with our public works department and our parks department. They need to go to, I think, a 4-hour certification training to be able to take people on trails and in county parks. That's not the city limits, but it could be West Haven, Patrick Point, all these other areas. So I have requested to sit down and share consult, go over our existing ordinance, look at the loopholes in there, the places that need to be strengthened in order to get better adherence to these rules. But again, responsibility is something that we're going to have to educate people more about. Because just because your dog isn't vicious necessarily doesn't mean it should be off the leash and charging at other dogs or other people, because it can make folks very uncomfortable. And we've had situations with our dog on a leash, and suddenly here comes this other dog, and you just don't know what's going to happen. It is unfortunate because there are a lot of really great dogs and great dog owners that really enjoy being able to let their dog off the leash on the state beach. And for the most part, it seems to be okay. But you know, an okay situation can become a very bad situation very quickly, depending on the nature of the owners, the nature of the dogs, and dogs take cues from owners, right? We had a canine issue on our board just this last week, and you know, but locally our canine officers are not using dogs for crowd control, for instance, which was one of the biggest state issues. So again, it comes down to responsibility. But I do believe we can do better with our ordinance. For instance, when the dog's been declared vicious, and that dog is being released, first of all, it shouldn't have been released at all until the hearing, it seems to me, I think many people. Secondly, if it is going to be released, then people need to be notified. The city, wherever that dog resides, there should be a notification process to the victims as well as to the community, and that has failed. I have a quick question, and that is maybe Tad or maybe the council can answer this. So if the landowners on Wagner Street had in fact filed formal complaints with the city and or other appropriate authorities, would that have helped in terms of, do you think that in terms of some responsibility for costs and other kinds of things, having had those previous ones? In other words, would the landlord then be liable if they hadn't done it? Or how do we work that?
Any paper trail would help.
Yeah. And it would have helped at the hearing, although the hearing went well, but the owner had already fled and the dog had already been released. So there's some problems. So I'm committed to sitting down with the sheriff and others and figuring out how we can improve that. But then no law is worth anything if there's an enforcement, right? And so it comes down to that. I appreciate the work the city's been doing to add signage, which increases the ability to enforce, because then people can say, well, I didn't know, et cetera. So thank you for the work you're all doing. So those are the basics. I'm going to sit down with the sheriff. We're going to go through our ordinance and see what we can do to improve it and create a better response. And you know, we need to educate pet owners much better about this. And I think some enforcement may go a long way towards that education. Unfortunately, that's kind of how that works. If enough people start getting ticketed for being off leash, and then that will help with education. But it is unfortunate, you know, when you have like just a couple of people with dogs that are that way. In order to deal with that, you've got to constrain everybody else. But I don't know how else to do it. That's part of the problem. You can't just, you know, only enforce it against the bad dogs, right? Because you don't know.
If only they'd wear signs, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so it gets super complicated. We are committed to follow that.
I have a quick question about licensure. So
Recording in
this is
progress.
Just sort of mechanics when a dog gets a license in Trinidad, but people take their dogs all over the place. Is there a county license? Is it automatically transferred to the county when someone gets a license in Blue Lake or Ferndale or one of these municipal regions? What about all the county land, or is there any crossover? Do anyone know about how that works?
I do not know, but it's a good question.
Right, because so you follow the rules of Trinidad, right? Our giant city of 1 square mile, and then you're immediately in county. Is there could we as a city say, now that you've filed your license with us, here's the appointment or the process to file it with the county? Because you're going to leave the city limits.
I believe it is transferable because I looked today, and if you're outside of the city limits, you get a county license, a county dog license, but if you're in a municipality, you get that municipality's dog license. So,
Okay.
so I think if you've got a Trinidad dog license, you're good anywhere in Humboldt County. And if you're in Humboldt County outside of Trinidad, you
But
come here
The
and you
rules,
got one, you should be covered.
the rules change. Well, I guess what I'm, right, the big thing about the license, right, it's not for the dog, it's for the owner, so they know what the rules are where they have their dog. Right, so can we look at strengthening the educational component of this, saying, now that you've got your Trinidad license, here's the next step.
Yeah.
Know where you go, right? Some kind of campaign to know where you go, so that when you go visit folks down in Ferndale, you know what the rules are down there too.
Right, that's a good question. I've got it on my list there, but so other things to follow up on. But how many people here in the room own dogs? Keep your hands up. How many of us have current licenses for our dogs? Good mystery, right? But I will say that in general, I think that there are a whole lot of people that don't do the annual licenses for their dogs.
Yeah.
And there isn't a system really to, how does that get implemented, right? How does it get enforced for the rest of it? It's important. It used to be, but I would say our current system doesn't really work. So, right? We're supposed to have a rabies shot update. I mean, maybe there can be a way to interface with the veterinarian clinics. You know, if you take a dog into the clinic, you got to show that it's got a license. You want care for your dog, you show it's got a license. You know, and that might be a way. I don't want to constrain things so much to really, ruin it for all the relatively responsible dogs and dog owners. But I think clearly we got to do better than.
I have a question, just clarification. Did I understand you to say that there's a 4-hour training that would allow ticketing then for off leash?
It's for our parks department folks in particular, and I don't know.
We couldn't have, for example, the people who are going to help us with policing here in Trinidad. We couldn't have them get the training, and so they could ticket.
I'm going to find out that information as well. So what I'm going to do is, as this gets going, I want to come back and keep you all informed about what we're finding out, what the suggested changes might be, because ultimately to make those changes, it's in our ordinance. That'll have to come before a board of supervisors twice, right? Because you have to read the ordinance twice. So that will be ongoing, but I have requested a meeting. I haven't gotten a response yet, but I will keep working on this. So, that's a good question, because are your staff, who implements the dog ordinance in Trinidad? Sheriff, working for the city, but staff aren't really authorized to probably.
Yeah, so that's one of the things.
Yeah, it's seniors, it's not get very familiar with the dogs.
Yeah.
And the people, right? And that's probably might be a good thing. So I'll find out what the applicability is.
Yeah, I'll ask one more. What about kind of a consistency across the county of laws, dog laws, and also if they're not, being able to have a location where people could find out the differences between different cities and county, so they could have it in one spot. And I think that you could know that it might show people that they need to be aware. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's out there. So.
Well, I doubt that it is, but I've seen a matrix, where you list all the jurisdictions and the various elements that are of importance and see who covers what and how that works. That could be very informative in terms of cross-boundary jurisdictional stuff. Because dogs don't just stay where they're licensed. That's pretty clear. People move around. What if you're not in Humboldt County and you're only licensed in Humboldt? Then does the state law come into play? So these things are all important elements to delve into.
It's got some the newspaper to get a hold of it and actually put something in the paper, have local areas look at that, so we can reinforce what we're trying to do across the county and trying to get people to recognize it. There's problems we need to fix.
Like, of course, on State Beach and there in the picnic area, which is also part of it, State Beach Park, that's state law, right? That's not even the city county. State Beach, I don't know, right? So we've got 3 elements here: state, county, city. I think comparing and contrasting those and seeing where the weaknesses are, where we can make improvements. That's what our goal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate all your support on this. Eli, maybe I think you were going to address the question of who since enforcement is going to come up, who enforces in the city?
Yeah, what we do is we contact the animal control officers and the animal control shelter. so that they would actually have their trained officers handle a situation. So the main thing with, what we were trying to do with existing people here in town, meaning also Pacific Coast Security and the Community Ambassador Program, is what I wrote, informing the public, number one, about the leash law, and number two, reporting any incidents to the city so that we know and we can follow up. Number one, if it is a current incident, or number two, if it is like an issue on Wagner where some of the homeowners had issues and the city was unaware of it. And then the third one was enforcing the leash laws, which would be the fining portion of it, where we be fining people if they're not following the laws.
Yeah, and I think what I might add, and then I think Mr. Pease has something to add as well. So we talked about increasing awareness. So we want to make sure everybody understands that we have a leash law. We want to be able to communicate that, and you did a really great job with that letter that you sent out. And we also want to communicate to the people in town and visitors that they need to report bad behavior, because if we don't know there's bad behavior, we can't really take action. And I think the city council is committed to taking action where we know there's an issue. So we really need the support of the folks in town to report things. And then enforcement, we talked about, not only our own law enforcement and animal control, but we also have these new programs we're implementing. Ticketing would be a new thing, I think, for us. So that's a muscle maybe we haven't flexed a lot in the past. And to Katie's point, we might need training. We might need to be certified to do that. I think the other thing, so in addition to communicating and enforcing, I think the other thing is that we've heard a number of folks mention is hardening the ordinances. So not only from the county perspective, but the city may need to look at hardening its ordinances as well. And specifically, not so much the leash law, but we probably need maybe the planning commission to take a look at it for other areas where we could get a little bit crisper on the language. So who's responsible, for example? Right now it rolls up to the Parks Department. Those kinds of things. And I won't go into the details. I think we all know, having read some of those ordinances, but I think there's an area there that we need to work on. So I've been spending a lot of time on this because I've had a lot of conversations over the last few weeks. So I let Tad comment, and I want to hear from the other councils besides me on their thoughts.
Yeah, just a point of information. In this case, this dog was registered in McKinley, although her license has lapsed, as had her rabies tag. So yes, she had been licensed, but she wasn't current, and so there was no record actually of where this guy was living at the time. So this is, and I ain't gonna chase people that way. That's an issue. And to your point about reporting, I just wanted to say that again because the animal control officer in this case would have had, I think, considerably more discretion in terms of what actions he could have taken immediately and over time if there had been perpetrated. So if that's one, I think that's an important point, is to try to get people. Nobody wants to squeal. We got better things to do. And when something is over, it's over. But I think that might. The other thing I'd say about the animal control officer, at least the one I dealt with, Brenda and I walked dogs at the shelter. We volunteered for years until our knees went out. So we knew a lot of those people, and they were stuck. And this is to the point of the county ordinance, and maybe Supervisor Madrone might take this point to the sheriff, but they didn't seem to have much discretion in terms of their own judgment of this particular dog. They had little boxes to check, but it wasn't a vicious attack because it was a dog fight that I got to the middle of. And, however, anybody could take a look at that, and this was a pretty vicious dog attack. So, and that's a question of semantics, maybe, but it removes the discretion from the officer. At the same time, the animal control, the shelter director apparently had the discretion to let the dog go without, at the wrong time, in my opinion. So maybe discretion is not such a hot idea. Finally, Rob Patton, the animal control officer, had said that he'd love to be up here more, but apparently he has to ask permission to come to town. So if permission from whom? Just somebody at the city said, I need a call from somebody at the city council or from the city manager if I come into the city office or the staff. Right? So in this case, he actually violated the rules by coming into town before he got an official call.
I think we should clarify that. I think there's a little bit of a nuance there because Eli probably has a little latest on this, but do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I spoke to the animal control officers and at the animal shelter. And there is the current process is the city would go ahead and request their assistance. But if we have some other arrangement with the animal control officers, then we could have where they would automatically respond without having to ask us for permission.
And is that like a city resolution saying you give blanket permission to come into the city? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm finding this really hard to swallow.
Yeah, well, part of it could be also with having a different contract, because our current contract is basically having them provide the service for us, but most of that service is tied to the kennel that we have at the animal control shelter. So that's why I had spoken to this lady, and we want to go ahead and find out what other improvements we can do to help make the process quicker.
Let's extend it on an invitation.
Right.
Yeah, so we pay for a kennel today, but we.
This had happened at my house. I was outside of town. I can call animal control, they'll be there, well, whenever they come. But if it happens in town, again, it's supposed to be a two-step process. Right. So that's problematic. And without any incident, we're not going to discover these strange little loopholes. So, right, like you were saying, there are some silver linings to this, and discovering these silly little loopholes is one of them. We're glad to help. Yeah.
What does it mean we have a kennel?
Yeah, there's a kennel that's available at all times. So in other words, whenever.
Problem, Bill.
A vicious dog could
We
be.
can have one problem.
No, the point is that we have one that's reserved, that there's not going to be another dog that they say, oh, sorry.
We have two problems.
Then they'd have to use.
They have to.
Yeah.
Well, either that or they might have another one available.
You better not have two problems.
But it's a guarantee that at least we have space there. Yep.
Reserve everything.
Right.
Right, counselors, other comments or suggestions, thoughts that you have about the situation?
I have a lot of reactions to what's happened. Tremendously sympathetic and protective and angry at what happened. I'm the person who, 4 months ago was saying, we got to let our dogs run free. I am sorry when people who get along and their dogs get along have to be constrained, but this situation just can't happen again. The week after it happened, everywhere I went, I ran into people, mostly women, and they were carrying tasers. 3 or 4 of them had tasers, and and they said that they're frightened to go out without them. So I mean, to me, all the things that we've talked about are really excellent beginnings. But I'd like to see some more teeth in the ordinances. Strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, you're out. I'm not sure how to do that or what is even legally permissible, what kind of ordinances we can have. But a dog that shows aggression several times, even if it hasn't actually gotten hold of somebody's finger, that dog needs to be restrained and something needs to be done. Why wait until somebody's really hurt? And like Ted said, if it had been my little Lucy out there, she'd be dead right now. And that would be awful. So there are a lot of little dogs in here. Not all dogs are going to be big enough to get away from a pit bull or any other dog that's aggressive. So I just want to see us do some research on it, find out
what we can do and put some real teeth in the ordinances. And then as we educate people, that's part of the education. The other thing I'd like to see is our dog licensing. I was here almost a year before I knew that I needed to license my dog. I think people are just not aware of it. And, you know, like Jennifer's done with septic suit, I'd like to see something done with dog licensing. And on the licensing, you can say, has your dog ever been involved in an aggressive altercation? You know, you have to show your rabies certificate already, isn't that right, Angela? That we could structure it where it actually becomes an educating event. Even if it means, I mean, people aren't necessarily going to come running into City Hall to do the license. You know, I'd be willing to be part of a crew that went door to door, even if you got a dog, if it licensed. So, I mean, we've got a small town, so we could do that. And that then provides a lot of education for people too. Those are the two things I'd like to see: more teeth and then a licensing push.
There's a lot of out-of-towners that will come and they won't have a leash, and possibly maybe where they pick up their plastic dog things, we could have cheap little leashes on hooks for people that are from out of town that they see the sign. Okay, I still want to have a walk with my dog. Here's a loan a leash. Something like that.
Like a leash library.
Yeah, leash library.
Okay. Other thoughts or comments?
Adding an annual letter from the city, reminding about the dog leash, right? There's no, I'm assuming the leash license is a year from issue, or is it a calendar year? I don't know how we do it. But it's just from the day you buy it, right?
Mine says June 30th.
So it's a calendar year. So in preparation for the turnaround, send it out to every, I like this sort of city resident water customer. Obviously we'd need to have some for folks that live in county to direct them to the county for licensure, but just to do an annual reminder. I haven't had a dog for years, so I don't remember what kind of, publications are out there, but I think that would help us keep this thing fresh. Right, so that we're all thinking about it every year.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Keep more education.
And really to thank you, Steve, for, bringing this to sort of the county level. And I think there's just a lot of opportunities for county and cities to work a lot closer. Because like I said, Humboldt County folks travel. We love to go to all the beaches and all the forest trails and Pillar Park and everything. So, we need to honor the fact that our folks are really mobile with their pets, so that it's a good education no matter where they are, that they know what rules to follow.
My concern is what happens after a dog attack or whatever might happen in the dog problem, because my concern right here to say that really is paying everything out of his own pocket. So it would be nice, I think, to also add information about what happens if your dog attacks another dog, what could happen to your dog, what could happen to you, how much money is involved, and also maybe a way to, when a dog is attacked, getting immediate information about the person who owns the dog, and that gets to the city. So it can't be, so anytime that there's even a dog attack of any kind, that you immediately get that information. The city has it on file, so it can be, so at least you can have the beginning of a trail on that person. But there's some pretty awful things that could happen to a person or if a dog attacks. And I think if we could also have that information out there, that if you attack, it's going to be a bigger problem, and you could have some large fines for, including probably being sued for any kind of injuries. In fact, I think that should be somehow be part of it, that we can say if somebody is injured, that the person who owns the dog is going to be responsible for all costs. It would be nice to see some harsher information. So if it goes beyond just what we can do. And we all have that problem that it's very difficult to enforce a fast moving dog. And it's just obviously, Ted had no opportunity to do anything. So it would be nice if people knew in advance that if things happen, it's going to be, there are some serious issues and some big money that would have to be paid out in order to repair what was done. The responsibility to take care of any injuries and anything happens, not only to the person who's injured, but the dog that's injured. And we would be able to get things on file, get that information out of somebody. If the other person who's involved is injured, but we've talked about all these things that seem to be things that would happen beforehand, but I think it's also good to know what happens. If you're not careful. And of course, we find out that this guy left town because he knows it's going to be bad. Now we can't find him, so it'd be nice to be able to come down with some concrete information.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and kind of, when I think about hardening the ordinances, so at the state level, they establish liability. At the county level, they essentially say, have a hearing, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to go to the hearing to see what that was like. But once they decide that a dog is vicious, then there are some things that are then brought to bear. But they're mostly like that the person has to maintain insurance, that the person has to register the dog, the person has to have signage, they have to have an enclosure. It's not clear that there's anything that says if a person is negligent and their dog goes out and bites somebody and does serious injury, that they're cited. And so there's nothing that says that they are therefore cited and they're arrested and so on and so forth, that there's not that culpability of the owner in that regard.
And the other part of this was too, is if they find a dog that hasn't been vaccinated, doesn't have a license, that there also should be more penalties for that, so people realize that they're not paying attention, that could also be.
Yeah, definitely. So that's where I think the hardening of the ordinances is what happens when something bad happens. There's not a clear, at the city or the county level, I don't think we have a clear, which I think was Katie's point, a clear sort of guideline for, okay, this happened. Now this is the, the repercussion. So anyway, Supervisor Monroe wanted to comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All these things are important. And in this instance, if the neighbors down Wagner had done notification, ideally, certified mail to the landlord or the owner of the property if that's their dog. If that kind of process happened, it takes time to do it. But 5-10 minutes, 15 minutes. Without that, it becomes very difficult, right? Because then it's the first, right? Because what we do know about these ordinances is that if there is a track record, then there are more repercussions, right? But without that track record, it's going to get you that next place. The other thing I want to say is I think the vast majority of dog owners and dogs are actually really amazingly friendly, loving pets. So what many communities have done to try and resolve that, because, you can put your dog out in the yard, but they don't necessarily run, right? They're kind of cruising around and doing stuff. But when you go to the beach and you're able to let your dog off the leash and they go running and you see them just leaping for joy. It's an amazing, wonderful thing for those dogs, right? So what communities do is they often create dog parks. We have one in Miller Park. We have a dog park. And when you're in that dog park without, you can be unleashed. The dogs can be unleashed because there's this common principle that you're not going to let your dog loose in there if your dog is, aggressive and whatever. And I have not heard of any problems at the dog park in Kindle other than recent next door posts about dogs and horses. I think it was on Facebook actually. And the dog owner is saying horses shouldn't be anywhere around. It's like, well, you can pet, McKinneyville was horses have the right of way and on and on. And the Hammond trails horses are absolutely encouraged and allowed on the Hammond Trail, but not in the dog park, right? So the city could potentially think about this as one possible piece of a positive solution, which is create a small dog park. And in that fenced dog park, they're able to run and play with each other, right? Because we don't want to take that away from people. But that's one way to do that. There's an expense associated with it, obviously. But anyway, I just wanted to mention it. Thank you.
Good suggestion. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up to public comment because I know there's a number of people here, I think, who have been thinking about this and may have some ideas and suggestions. Please.
That's what you said, Kelly, about needing crisper language. And I think this letter that I got as a water customer is a really great start, but it needs more. And what it needs is some clarity. For instance, it doesn't mention Launcher Beach, and it doesn't mention Trinidad Head. And I know from dog owners, friends of mine, that Trinidad Head is often a problem with unleashed dogs. I have a friend who walks her dog there every single day, and her dog is always leashed. And the dog will run up to her, and then people say, "Oh, it's a big dog." So that might be good to include in there. The other thing about this letter is it went to water customers, which is great. I think it could go also perhaps to West Haven water customers. We have a nice relationship with them. They might be willing to expand it a little bit. And then the problem I see with it is if a person is renting a house and they are paying the water bill, they would get this letter because they are the water user of record. But is the property owner paying the water bill? They get this letter? Maybe not, because there is only one water bill. And vice versa. If the owner of the house is getting the water bill, perhaps then the renter doesn't get this. So I think we need to think about how we reach all the people who are involved in one property. And in the property in question, where the dog came from that attack, that means I know that the owners own the property. They've been renting to the one renter for quite a number of years, but that renter sublet to the man with the dog. So there's a good example of how would you reach all three people who would be affected by these laws if you just send one letter. So I'm saying we could do a little bit more than sending the letter out. And also the bottom paragraph, dogs are not permitted off leash at Trinidad Beach, and the dogs are permitted off leash at the other beaches, could be clarified a little more to include Launcher Beach and Trinidad Head trails. So thank you for starting this process, and I hope you can make this letter a little bit even stronger and send it out further. And I also love your idea, sir, about sending out the annual letter with the license reminder and reiterating this information. A great way to reach dog owners. But don't forget, there are a lot of people in the layers. They're not only the owners, the renters, the subletters, and the visitors. They're all the people who live in the county who love to come to Trinidad and bring their dog. You all know who live in the city what it's like on Halloween. My friend Darlene Marlowe used to have to buy, 500 candy bars because people in the Pinnacle love to bring their kids to Trinidad and trick or treat. So there aren't 500 little kids in Trinidad. Same thing with dogs. People love to bring their dogs here and walk because it's a nice place to walk. You have to think about more of those to reach all these people.
That's a good point. So I think we need to think about communication, not just from the letters, but also, we may need to do more of a campaign, which I think, Katie, you might have mentioned that about, similar to what we did with septic too. So just raise awareness. I think that's a great idea. The other thing I'll just briefly mention is that the website will have an opt-in for people to opt in to get mail, so they can opt in if they're within Trinidad and the greater Trinidad area, and we'll be able to reach more people. So hopefully we'll get that up in the next couple of months. Diane.
Hi. Thank you, Supervisor Madrone, for coming and commenting and giving us a lot of ideas for the city. And council members, you got your work cut out. I want you guys to take every suggestion that you just made and deep dive into it. Because when I see you, I'm going to ask you how you're doing. Okay, because I know this guy is going to do it. The drone guy. You're doing fabulous. Thank you for running the county. So get my first. Okay, how many dogs are licensed? Do you have that?
Yeah.
Approximately 20.
In the city, okay. Because there's a lot more than 20 dogs walking. Now, I don't have a dog. I have a lot of school kids and that was it for me. I have 2 younger residents, so I've got to watch it so that I stay. far away from the dog. So what about the STR dogs? Are they, do they come and get a license? They don't. Okay, so they come from Santa Cruz, they come from Oregon. So I know Eli told me that they're gonna put the sign, the new signs, which I really like. Dave showed me a picture of that. They'll be at the SDR. So
Yeah, we'll have signage in every SCR that allows dogs.
okay. And I really like this educating certificate, you know, because they need education, being an educator, I'll tell you, everybody needs it to keep going. So, trying to get the security group that they're gonna have here, those guys, and what about the rangers? The park rangers, can we get them certified or educated, Steve?
Rangers are.
They are.
I believe it's not education, it's certification.
Yeah, certification.
To be able to give them a citation.
Okay.
That's
So
the-
why would you take it?
Thank the park rangers are already certified. They lost.
Okay.
Lost.
So let's see. Okay, so there'll be a sign at the state beach and at the state park, but we can't put one at the state park.
Well, we're gonna have signage at the beach and then also the Trinidad State Park when you're entering into the park.
Okay, okay, and that might be a good place for the dog park, because there used to be a horse park. You know, the horse trails that go through that park. And actually, a lot of us that have lived here forever used to walk in that, on those trails, but it's dangerous now. Okay, so, how can we get the teeth in the ordinance so we can get the money? We can get the 100, 200, 500. But we've got to get going on that
That's in
to
there
get.
now.
Just
That part we can do
signage,
now.
But they can just reference this and they can give the ticket for those
So
events.
who's gonna get the tickets?
Well, whoever that's, whether it's Pacific Coast Security or the Sheriff's Office
Okay, and the ranger can give tickets?
and the Rangers team.
Okay, do they know that?
Well, they know they can give tickets. We just.
And those
wanted
are
to
the
make
those
sure.
are the guys with the surfboards, right? Ranger.
That I don't know
Right.
specifically what they have.
The guys with the surfboards on top of the rangers, I see them more than anybody.
Yeah.
They're not law enforcement, so they would need the additional certification or the training.
Okay, so we can- Because they're
It's law enforcement, they can give tickets, and so we would need to get other people certified to do it.
Yeah.
We need to
But
check
the
it.
sheriff, you know, that sheriff that I met last weekend, he said that, you know, definitely he would enforce. You know, he would warn first. Then enforce, is that how it's written?
Well, it's not written in those many words, but that's
Right.
the usual is to give a warning and then to enforce.
Okay, and part of that paper trail. Like Wagner House, they one block over, one house over, back from where that person lives, so they didn't know. The owner. Who's been renting it to somebody for 8 years, that person sublet it, but didn't. Owners didn't know that it was sublet, so that was a mess. So. And the dog probably wasn't registered, right? Yeah. But registered in.
McKinley.
McKinley. Well, I'm glad Chad wasn't out there, they walking around.
If you stick.
Yeah, but I go a little bit there. And then weekend response. If something, there is a dog issue, has to go to the sheriff.
Well, ideally, if there's a problem, like I said in the letter,
Oh, okay, that's right. Your letter was good, and I was glad it was in the matter of the union, and that may be. So we can get some more. Printed
Yeah.
about what's going on, because they're really good and they're like right out there, they're right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 911 is in an emergency situation. So you've got a dog running loose and you don't know if it's vicious or not, don't, hesitate if you can.
I've also said, because
Yeah,
I said, I'm supposed to be on the leash, oh, brave me, or, I'm not, this is a good dog, a well-behaved dog. So there's a leash on it, he's buttoned up. He's got my sticks. Support. Okay, let's see right here. So pretty much we're down to enforcement. In the city, whether it's the SDRs, whether it's the dogs, whether it's the security group or the sheriff. Go around checking the city because it's spring break. And in 2 weeks, those college parents are going to be up there. Everybody's already up there. 100 people do things, and 1,000 coming in every the summer. So I would like to see those security people have a spot. And I talked to Eli, I talked to Jennifer, I talked to the mayor. I'd like to see the enforcement people that were going to try for 3 months, have a little office where the old police station was, have a desk, have a notebook, have a log, so they log in what's going on, date, time, or whether, it's another issue in town, because, we're on the dog issue, but there are other things that need to be taken care of. Okay, then my last thing is I need to tell you about something about signs. It's a little out there, but I live on the corner of View and East, and Saturday, the 28th of March, my husband said, "Oh, ooh, those are air brakes." So we go out under the porch, and it's already 8:30 at night. So dark, and there is a huge double truck. I don't know, Katie, if you were home that night, but we watched it barely make the corner, hit the top of the tree. There's between Larry's house, Rose's house, and the city owns part of that tree. Go down to the corner, and then we were just praying that it would make the corner to go down to Ocean. And this is what I've talked to Eli before about this, and I've got some iPad photos. We've got to put some signs up about the big trucks. And Caltrans and us needs to say, large trucks not advised, because what happens is they come out of Canada, they come out of Oregon, and they're tired, they need a sandwich with a big belly, they need a sandwich or whatever, they stop. And then they're stuck. If they're that big going down View, I don't know if you guys saw it.
I don't know if you were here for the last city council meeting. We talked about traffic calming on Ocean. And one of the things, Diane, that came up, because you're spot on, there were some other concerns that were very similar. I don't know if they mentioned that today.
About other trucks.
But we did talk about putting up some signs. Steve had some suggestion about maybe the signs talking about weight limits. And so Josh is going to go off and take a look. It's a little different than the dog topic, but
Right.
Josh is going to go
Signs, we batted that around.
and work on it. Yeah.
And the planning commission, we really need to get that done.
Yeah, so that's a priority that we set at the last meeting, that we said Josh is gonna come back. I don't know Josh's last name.
Wolf.
Thank you.
He's on vacation.
He's gonna come back with some suggestions, because you're not the only one who's mentioned
Well, it's
that.
very great. So there are.
Yeah.
So anyway, council, you represent the Trinidad community, so we're counting on you.
Thank you. Thanks for giving us the feedback. Really appreciate it. Other comments about the topic of dogs. Right? I see none, so I'm gonna bring it back to the council. Doc, I think you're
That's like the idea of the dog park, but we don't have a lot of open spaces that would cost the city a lot of money. So, but other cities, what they do, what they have a beach like us, they actually have dog beach hours. So from 9 to 11. And so then there's a sign, everyone can have their dogs off that at a certain time of the day. And that would appease a lot of people that have really great dogs. And then they could all see each other. But then after a certain hour, then the general public would could have the dogs.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, thank you.
How are we going to manage next steps?
You like?
So you're saying, how are we going to manage next steps?
Yeah.
What,
Yeah, I mean, the important thing is really, like Supervisor Madrone said, he's going to be talking with the sheriff. Ideally, if we can, throughout the county, all the cities sort of get on the same page. I know when I talked to the animal control officer, she said that in order for them to respond, they had to follow the state law because our ordinance did not follow their normal procedure. And they said that they have the county procedure. So they follow the county procedure, but they utilize the state law in order to be able to follow through with the hearing and so on, because our ordinance doesn't provide for the hearing. Our ordinance is basically either myself or Public Works declaring a dog vicious and euthanized. And we don't have that capability, to do that internally. So we like to rely on the animal control officers. So basically to try to implement whatever best general ordinance procedure that either the county has or the state has. So I think that's the important thing. If we can get on that track. And at the same time, like I said, I had reached out to the animal control officers. So we're going to try to find out how we can simplify the process so that they can automatically respond whenever contacted without having to ask us if we would request that they respond as a city.
Yeah, so it sounds like so first we will continue. We're going to put up the signs. We're going to continue the annual communication. We're going to get the website going and let people opt in so they can get communication. The enforcement we talked about. So we're going to make sure that we enforce using the ambassadors and the private security that augments law enforcement. But there's also, from an ordinance perspective, what we could do is say that we want the planning commission to take a pass through the dog related ordinances and have them come back and make a recommendation to the city council.
where there could be first incident, X happens.
We could
second
ask them
incident,
to look at
But some kind of stepwise where we're not deferring to the county, that we can do something here.
Yeah, and they could also look at, because the comparison to the county and state laws and make sure that matches. So if we want to harden the ordinance, I think that planning commission is the right place for that. Is that right, Eli? Or
Trevor's on the,
Yeah,
I believe that's the case, but,
no.
yeah.
but any ordinance goes through the planning commission.
Trevor, are you there? We're stuck.
There she is.
There she is. We were just talking about maybe delegating the ordinance review to the plan. What do you think?
I mean, I think you could, delegate anything you want. It's not really a land use issue, although I guess if you're looking at areas and times where dogs were allowed, it could be a planning issue. I think it's probably more of a city council issue though.
Okay. All right. So we'll keep that here then. So Eli, I guess we'll leave it with you that you will take a look at the ordinance and bring it back to the city council for review once you've heard more about the changes, any changes to the counties.
Right.
Okay. And then
And adding to the to-do list, I think Steve's suggestion of an annual licensing, which could carry
Letter, yeah.
information.
Yep.
And if in fact we did have hours on the beach for leash free, Jack's suggesting that could be included in there. And And then I know with the licensing, if you don't license it doubles the fund. Isn't that right, Anton? It doubles, I believe.
There's a late fee, but it doesn't double. But we can add that to the ordinance. The fees can all be adjusted in this process.
And it could be in the letter then that is sent out saying, good time to get your dog license, get the spring rate.
And just in case it's not already in your notes, Eli, I think a lot of folks have really pointed out the pitfalls of, landowners and renters and so on and so forth. So I think the annual letter to everybody says, if you're a landlord, it is your responsibility, and this is where the ordinance might need some extra work, but it's your responsibility to notify your tenants of leash laws and responsible dog behaviors and such, so that we're covering, again, we have our paper trail to say, hey, you've been notified, and therefore it's a lot easier to enforce something that you made clear instead of relying on people's, I thought it was the same as where I live in Blue Lake or whatever. So anyway.
Maybe this has been a really important topic. So maybe we, some of these other ideas that we've come up with, maybe we should capture that when we get to future topics, maybe we do a checkpoint in like July and we talk about, beach hours, which I think is a good idea, dog parks, etc. Unless there's somebody on the council who wants to kind of be the animal leader or something. We can bring it up.
Volunteering.
Now that we're rebuilding this website, I'm thinking like there's a little section called Meet the Dogs of Trinidad, right? And so everyone's dog has a picture and a bio, everyone that's registered. And then anyone that doesn't, if we see a dog that's not, just walking around on this bio list, like we can take a picture of them without a leash and just post it on this Dogs of Trinidad. And we could say, hey, I saw this dog out. Yeah, you haven't, we don't know about this dog. Be careful, something like that.
It's a great idea. So Jack, would you mind being kind of the point person to kind of share some of these ideas with city staff and then bring it back to the council in a few months? Mainly just to kind of keep it in the forefront, and that'd be great. Right.
It's okay now.
Yes.
Could you send me a copy of the ordinance, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, I am going to move us then to our second. Thank you, everyone, by the way. Thanks for the great discussion. I think we're going to make some progress, so appreciate it. Thank you, Ted, for being here. Okay, the next discussion is regarding the lot line adjustment application with the Trinidad Rancheria to exchange approximately 1,200 square feet of land with the city of Trinidad for development of the Rancheria Interpretive Center at the harbor. And so I'll ask Eli when he's ready to just give us and by the way, after this topic, we may take a short break at about 8 o'clock or so, a 5-minute stretch break for everybody. But Eli, if you wouldn't mind kind of tell us what's going on with the lot line adjustment application, that'd be great.
Yeah. So you have Senator also present. So after my little introduction, you can turn it over to him. And we also have Trevor, and she actually prepared the staff report on it. So I'm actually just going to turn it over to Trevor, and then I can fill in if there's anything else that's needed.
Yeah, so this is the Rancheria received approval for a new interpretive center from the Planning Commission back in August to 2021. A corner of the building is located on the Galindo Street right of way, so you can see in the map. So it's going to be located where the bait shop and office, shed and storage buildings are located now. As discussed at the Planning Commission meeting, they couldn't move the building to get it out of the city right of way. It's basically on areas that's already developed as part of the harbor facilities. And the Planning Commission approval included a condition that the Rancheria had to get permission from the city council to use that corner of the right of way. Staff brought that back to the city attorney, and after some discussion with the city attorney, he recommended that it actually be a land exchange rather than just an easement. Because it's a new structure, and if someone injured themselves coming out of the building or going around the building on city property, the city could be liable. So he suggested a lot line adjustment as an alternative. So city staff and Rancheria staff met down at the site a couple of times and discussed various options. The Rancheria had a survey done, and it was found that the top of the trail and stairs leading up to the Trinidad Head access road from the parking lot is on Rancheria property, but that trail is maintained by the city. Yes, that's the spot. And so what the Rancheria is proposing is an even land exchange, so same amount of area from the Galindo Street right of way. So the city give that corner of the Galindo right of way to the Rancheria, and the Rancheria give the same area of their property to encompass the trail. And it would be in the form of a lot line adjustment. The lot line adjustment has to be approved by the Planning Commission. It also requires a coastal development permit. So the Rancheria is also working on their coastal development permit for the interpretive center before the Coastal Commission. So they would add the lot line adjustment to that permit application.
All right, thank you, Trevor. Other questions?
I have my question, and just trying to read this map. We're talking about this little area and this little area, not this whole big splotch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those little tiny, shaded areas. Yeah, one is on the right, and that's where the interpretive center would be, and the trail is on the left. Of the sheet.
Okay, I see no other questions from the council members. Are there questions from any members of the public around this?
Can I just stand here?
Yeah, Diane.
So I was on the planning commission when they presented this, and it's a really nice building, very nice building. And it will just add to the beauty of Trinidad because it's really designed nice. And we did talk about the trail. It was really hard. I think it'll be good. They won't have public bathrooms, so for everybody to go, harbor. And the only other thing that I'd like to comment on, and I don't know if I did that, Trevor, we had a meeting in August of 2020. The arrows in the harbor parking lot need to be painted so that people are going around the harbor right when you Janine? Well, I mean, and it was really tough because it was so popular. And once it's the center, it's built, it's going to be really nice for launching beach and the launch and just the community. But that would be my suggestion. Ask them if they could paint the arrows so you go in and out.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, thank you. And thanks for the comments about the interpretive center. It does look very nice. Other comments? Okay, I'll bring it back to the, I'm sorry, Bryce.
Gotta be faster than that, right?
Stand up than I used to. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. And I just want to say I'm in favor of the exchange. I think it's a good way to resolve two encroachments. Roughly equal amount of land, so good idea.
Thank you. Right, is there, I can't tell if there's anybody online raising their hand, but I don't see anyone, so.
Usually it comes to the top.
Yeah, it should, there we go. No, we're okay. All right, so bringing it back to the city council then, is there
I move that we approve the lot line adjustment application.
Second.
Is there a question or we're okay?
I was just doing said just a discussion on that. So, as an item, it was going to be action. That was all.
I
But
see if it's an action. Okay, Katie has seconded, so all those in favor? Aye. Just wanted to make sure I was following the path there, Jack. Thank you. All right, next up on the agenda, then we move quickly through that one. Discussion decision regarding the draft resolution adopting new fees and charges for the OWTS on-site wastewater treatment system management program. Eli, are you kicking that one off as well?
Yeah. Well, Trevor again will be covering this one, but basically it's to adjust the fees for getting the septic permit because of the fact that we want to make sure that any expense that the city has is covered. And we have the staff time, and we want to make sure that that's covered and that the city doesn't have to pay extra for whatever services are provided by Trevor and our staff. So, but I'll turn it over to Trevor. She can explain it.
Thanks. Yeah. So I've been working with Jennifer to get the OWTS management program fully implemented citywide. So it's something that's always been a priority for the city, but other priorities have kind of gotten in the way of it. And we've done some sporadic implementation over the years with when we've had grant funding and some extra staff when the city had Nicole. I was working with Nicole and then with Angela as well. And so, but Jennifer's doing a really good job getting the letters out and getting people to submit these applications. And, as we've been going through this, we're finding that the permit fees that were set in 2010 are not covering the staff time to, send out these letters, prepare the permits, keep the filing, all those kind of things. And so we have proposed a fee increase, and we've also revised the fees. So we've separated, there was a separation between commercial and residential before, but we also had a separation with non-standard and standard. And we found that it's really not so much standard versus non-standard systems, but really what are the conditions on the property. So we have sort of a simple and a complex tier. The complex tier would be systems where there's unusual circumstances. Maybe we don't really have file information on the septic system. There's change conditions or previous conditions that we have to track. Multiple units on a property, sensitive habitat or resources, those sorts of things. And so these new fees would, we anticipate would cover staff costs for the most part for issuing these permits. We do have for the complex commercial systems an actual cost because those ones are pretty unpredictable. So I would Jennifer and I would record our time and then the actual cost would be billed. And I know it's definitely a jump in fees from what people are used to, and the inspections cost money and pumping costs money. But we did include a comparison table that shows what people are paying in towns for sewer fees. And so these costs over the average term of a permit are pretty reasonable when you look at it this way. And the OWTS program is pretty important because, we have found in past testing pretty high bacterial concentrations in our local waterways. We've got the Trinidad Bay ASBS that prohibits discharge. The state has an OWTS policy that this was kind of modeled, that this ordinance was modeled after. So it's something that's an important program to protect public health and the environment and property values, really. because we have a lot of older systems in town that are undersized and pretty dense development in Trinidad. Luckily, we have good soils. So there is that. But anyway, so I think it's an important program, and we're going to continue to implement it. We're offering everybody an opportunity to apply for their permit under the current fees. Jennifer sent out letters to everyone last year, and she's going to send out another round of letters as soon as you take this action. She's ready for that, and we're proposing that the fees would go into effect July 1st, so the new fiscal year.
All right, thank you, Trevor. Are there any questions for Trevor? No questions from the council. Are there any questions from the public regarding the septic fee update? Bryce?
Wondering, or is the public going to be notified whether there's a particular system that's been classified as compliant?
You got a question, Trevor?
Yes, I think he was asking if people are going to be notified what tier their system falls under.
Yeah, complex or simple. Or...
Yeah, so currently right now, people don't even necessarily know if they have a standard or a non-standard system. So we've just been telling people that they can submit the standard permit fee, and if it falls into the other tier, then the city will send an invoice after we review the permit. So we don't necessarily know up front until we get the information from them.
Could we look at our current license and see if it's standard or non-standard? I just don't have it in my head. Is that already on our current OWTS permit?
So if you have an OWTS permit, yes, it will say whether it's standard or non-standard.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? All right, I'll bring it back to the council then. So we need to approve, I guess, the adoption. We need to make a decision whether we agree with adopting these new fees. So let's make a motion, one way or the other.
I'd love to make a motion to approve resolution 2023-01 about all this stuff.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are moving on then to the discussion decision regarding purchase of Grant Vantage software subscription to support grant management and tracking processes. So Eli, did you want to take us through that one?
I'll introduce it very briefly. So basically, this is a software that will help in processing the grant. So once we receive the grant, there's a lot of requirements for reporting. And as a result, this will help track all of that information. So I'm going to turn it over to Becky. And we also have Angela, they're both on, but Becky will take over here.
Hi, everyone. This is Becky. And first of all, I just wanted to say I'm really excited to have Angela coming back to the city to work with me on the grants. And it's been a really interesting process to think about what I've been doing all these years and then trying to explain to Angela what I'm doing, how I'm doing everything. And I'll just kind of tell a little bit of the history really briefly, because you can kind of see where we're going with the agenda item based on what we wrote. But when I first came to the city, there really weren't systems for tracking grants. And so I started creating spreadsheets and other documents that tracked the payroll being allocated to each grant, and trying to come up with the budget every year, like projecting from each grant how much would be available for city staff. And so it's it's a lot of different pieces that all have to come together at some point. Like, it's not like I can just track each grant separately. I do that, but then everything intersects with the budget, and everything has to be balanced with the general ledger. So, and I've been managing, but there are certain parts of the year that take a lot of time that I feel is quite inefficient because I don't have an integrated system to work with. I have a bunch of different spreadsheets and they all have to balance, and I'm transferring information from one to another. So I'm just seeing this time right here where we're kind of going to the next level in a way. And it's an opportunity to have a better system that works better through the long term, that can store the documents that we need to maintain in our files. Anyway, so you can see kind of what we're looking at here. And so anyway, I'll just take questions from here. I don't know exactly what else would be good to explain, but we think this would be a good purchase that would make sense, and it I think it would be good. Angela's got the kind of next generation ability to really work with me to get this going. So I think it'd be great.
All right, thank you, Becky. Are there questions for Becky?
Yeah, I'm curious, Becky and Angela, what kind of support this software provides when you're implementing? I mean, I see a startup cost and an annual cost. Is there, are there techs within the company that would provide support as you get familiar with it? Or, okay, so it sounds.
Yeah, so actually they offer on-site training. So, and I think there's 12 hours of training for city, whoever the users are going to be at the city. So for Angela and I, they will come and give an on-site training. They will they'll enter 2 of our grants for us so that we'll have something to start with. We don't have to fumble around at the very beginning. And then there's a lot of support all the first year. And I actually am not sure how many hours are available in future years. So that would be a question. But they have a pretty good resource library, and they do have people available if we want to call. So I feel like it's very well supported, which is one of the reasons why we thought this was a better choice than one that's kind of like, we buy it and then we're kind of on our own and frustrated trying to get through to someone, or going through some of the different things we're familiar with trying to get customer service these days. So anyway.
Thank you.
Seems like it's a good cost benefit ratio here with the percentage. When you look at the cost for the software, as a percentage of the average annual grant income. I was just curious how they structure their pricing. Is it by user or was it by kind of grant? I initially inquired about this, and I was looking, and I hadn't actually asked them for a price because I was like, oh, this looks like it's going to be really expensive. And then I did call back again. And so the guy, Jason, asked me a lot of questions. How many grants did we have? He got the impression that we have a very small staff and city, we may be one of his smaller users. And I think the starting cost was a bit more just their normal price, but he, I guess, talked to maybe his supervisor or somebody, and they came back with this proposal for us. So I think it is a lower rate. Now I'm not even remembering the question you had exactly, but so they basically tailored it for us, I think, the price. Yeah, it sounds like they adjusted.
Yeah.
on the fact that we're a smaller town, so that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Becky, I'm Katie Breckenridge. I don't think
Yeah.
we've met, but I've heard your name over and over. I had a question. How did you encounter this software? Is it new or new to you, or how did it come about that you're?
So, this was recommended by somebody who's been doing a lot of grant administration through multiple organizations. And this person said that was what he used. And so it just kind of, we filed it away in our brains. Maybe that was probably December. And then did a little bit of online research to see what else is out there. And there is a lot that's geared for foundations and other entities, state agencies that are providing funds to grantees. And there was a slightly smaller, or maybe quite a bit smaller pool of software or systems for people who are grantees like us. And so I just kind of basically went through looking at all of the possibilities that I was able to find. And some of them were what I would call incomplete for what we wanted, like QuickBooks is an example that would do a lot of what we were interested in, but it wasn't able to be integrated with some of the reporting needs that we have that are sort of non-financial related. And, and of course you could always modify and, figure ways to do it, but I think it's nice that this is done from, for grants, so they include so many of the pieces that we use every day or every month. So it just seemed like it, looked like it met a lot of our needs.
But are there any, I'm sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
And it looks like you've got this down for 2 years. How long is this program? Something that's just a year to year, so you can stop at any time, or do you have is it a contract that's longer?
I didn't actually find out if there's a contract, but there's the startup fee, as you see, and then it's an annual subscription, and it's it's in the cloud. So they have the software, and we access it via a login. So it's there, it's backed up and saved any number of different ways. So
You don't have to. You could stop at any time if you felt like you were successful. It's nothing.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I'm guessing even if we launched into it and then in this introductory phase and we're like, no way, or whatever. I mean, I don't anticipate that, but I'm guessing that they would let us back out if it's just like really not suited for whatever reason. But
Right, are there any?
My only other question, and this is just, I'm just curious, Angela, you're inheriting this, but also being part of the development of it. I'm just curious if you have any words of wisdom for the council on your thoughts on this software and how you see it interfacing with your new job that you're working into.
So already in my third week, just seeing the process that Becky has been dealing with, it's a lot of jumping back and forth. And so just having the central hub of where all of our information is going to be is ideal, especially me stepping into this role, because it will streamline everything. It's also going to create more transparency. I'll be able to generate reports a lot faster, especially being new to this. It's nice to just have that and be able just to give you something, at the city council meeting if you have any questions. And there's one other thing that I really liked about this, I mean, there's multiple, but it's the sandbox capability of this. If I'm basically coming across a problem, I have the capability to go into what's called the sandbox, and it has all of our data mirroring what we currently have, and I can troubleshoot within it. So that's really nice to have. Just because, again, something might not be balancing, and I can go in, plug a few numbers in, and try and figure out exactly what's going on, and I'll be able to solve it without changing any of our other data and, ensuring that everything is still correct, and then make this modification to then make everything balance, for example.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. Thank you for that.
All right, public comments regarding Grant Vantage. Diane Stockness has a comment.
Well, I'd just like to welcome Angela to the city offices. She has 2 degrees. College degree, she's very bright, and her last job, she did a lot of data entry. So she'll be really great for Becky and this program. I think it'll be very good.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have Angela back. Welcome back, Angela. All right, is there a move to approve the purchase of Grant Vantage software or other questions?
Or I'll make a motion to that we accept Grant Vantage software subscription to support the management program.
Second that.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, Grant Vantage passes unanimously. Our next topic is regarding the temporary closure of the Axel Lingman Memorial and Parker Creek Trail beach access to Old Home Beach. I have recused myself from that discussion. It's a soft recusal, so I'm gonna stay in the room, but I will turn over the discussion to Mayor Pro Tem.
So, yeah, thank you very much. So we've been meeting with the Shuri Ancestral Society. We've been collecting input from folks. And so really this is a chance for us to update what's going on. There are quite a few recommendations from the Shuri management plan about how to stabilize the edge of the study area that we're really interfacing with. So these trails that we're talking about, the Parker Creek Trail, the Axel Lingman Memorial Trail, and the study area and the city's property, they all interface. And so that's why we're having this discussion about what to do about the considerable erosion and exposure that we saw as a result of these winter storms. And just to remind everybody, we did tap into some folks with some 20 plus year experience with this area. And they said that that while the erosion is significant this year, it happens off and on year to year, but it's not going to get any less, right? And so obviously the coast is eroding constantly. So as the owners or the current stewards rather of the 12.5 acres and the trails and whatnot, we are suggesting that we bring the recommendations from the Shuri management team to the council. We all have money set aside, or we as a city have money set aside to do some trail repairs. We bring those recommendations from the management team to do some improvements on this area. And that's the direction we want to go, and bring those to the council in a month to the next meeting, so that we can start spending the money that we've earmarked for trail repair, for making sure that these trails are safe, and also that the study area and the city's property is safe. Again, that we're temporary stewards of. So that's really the status of where we are. We're looking towards a May. I think it's May. What month are we? April. Yes. I had a loss of time there. Looking for a May council meeting to really say, here's the proposed plans, the approximate effort needed to put some improvements into these trails, whether it be short-term or long-term. Long-term is going to be far more expensive. We want to start thinking about that. But we also want to start spending some short-term just to make sure the trail is safe. So that's the status of where we are with the Parker Creek and the actual Ingram Memorial Trails. And we're really here tonight to discuss, do we keep the trail closed for that one more month as we collect these different ideas on how to shore up the trail, or do we open the trails back up? So that's really what the discussion is tonight. That's the introduction. Any questions from the council? Jack?
So the goal is to get them open as soon as possible. So we do want to have, no matter what, we're trying to get them open by summer.
Absolutely.
And we can open them immediately if we decided to do so.
As I understand it, our ability to close the trail was a temporary closure, and a long-term closure requires special permitting from the Coastal Commission. And so we're at the point now where we passed I believe we're at the end of the temporary period, and either we're going to pursue a long-term closure with permitting, or we're going to open the trails back up with the intent of working on these suggestions in the in the Churai management plan were made decades ago. This is nothing new, but it's in essence, these winter storms have forced our hand, say, we need to stop talking about these and start doing some of these things with the intent of safety and protection of the study area and the city's trails surrounding and bisecting the study area.
Is there, what are the reasons we wouldn't open since we're at the end of our temporary stay? Now,
We've been keeping we closed the trail originally for safety, right? And so we just want to make sure that when we make an action here, that we're considering the safety. And
it's the same.
It is. We've not been able to, that's the thing, is we've not been able to do anything as we kind of look at all of our different options on what the city can do in the short term and the long term.
So if it were opened, it would be at your own risk.
Absolutely. With the intent of putting these improvements in very quickly. So again, short-term improvements are to make sure the trail is safe today. And these are using existing materials and, nothing, no heavy equipment, no,
just moving small boulders.
Exactly. Stuff that people can do, not equipment, with the intent of looking to the future for, right, as we talk about sea level rise and intensity of storms increasing and so on and so forth. Our interface with the ocean is not going to get any softer, if you will, or any kinder. So, we're looking at both short and long term. Tonight's discussion is really, we're going to in May start making decisions about some short term ways of shoring up that trail and that study area in our city. Again, we're stewards of this 12.5 acres with the intent of returning it to the native community. We want to make sure that we're doing so with as much, I guess, investment, if you will, into that property.
Another question we have, you've already been in talks with the Churai and as to look at these trails. What are their feelings about opening it up?
Their feelings are to make sure that the trails are safe and that the study area is protected. So their main interest, of course, is the study area and make sure it's protected. And again, the management team came up with these ideas on how to improve the protection of the study area years ago, and that's what we're talking about.
Oh, well, I would like to see something that's possible, and I would also like to, if they're requesting to try to get a month time to try to make sure everything is for them is correct, I would like to give them that to them. But I also want to make sure we have something open to the beach as possible, so that we can get it done.
But they have the sheriff actually asked to keep it closed another month.
Mm-hmm.
They asked for it.
Yes.
With the idea that this protection and safety could take place within that month.
Right. Our meetings with the Churai Ancestral Society were, I think, very clear in saying that, let's look to the management plan that was developed 15, 20 years ago there are recommendations in there to secure and stabilize the margin with the high tide line. Let's start doing that.
Can that be done within a month? My experience with construction is double it.
Right, and so that's what we're trying to ascertain is how much money are we going to spend? What do we have? We have $20,000 to spend on trails. What can we do with that money in the time to get it open for the summer? Right. So we need to have that discussion with all of these suggestions in place to see what the city can do. You know, for instance, someone had the idea of planting willows because willows are incredibly fast growing and kind of hard to get rid of once you get them in there, right? The complexity is that the next time a big swell comes in, the willow rips out more land than you were protecting in the first place, right? So this is not a simple thing. So we're trying to incorporate everybody's perspective into what actions we're able to take that both meet the sort of the ability of the city, like any kind of funding that might be required, any kind of labor that might be required. So that's why we want to have that discussion in May using the existing suggestions and see what the city could do. In partnership with the Ancestral Society, you know, the Coastal Commission is like, hey, we got to have access to the coast, but it's also got to be in a way that's safe and protects resources.
And we'll talk to the Coastal Commission about the possibility of helping to fund some of these things. I've talked about, I'm not sure where things are, but I know we talked about fixing steps up to the head and already tried to put some money aside for that. I don't know where that is now, but that was part of it. But the other thing, like, I think if we could concentrate at least on the Parker Creek Trail, which I think is a little simpler in order to get it open, I think that would be something I would like to see us. If we are not going to be able to get the Axel England Trail, which is, I think, bigger issue on short term, I'd like to see at least the Parker Creek Trail ready in May, if possible, and at all possible to have open for summer use. So my feeling is let's concentrate on Parker Creek and see if that can be opened in time, because I think that'd be a little easier. And let's also find out if we can get money that might help. I think the Coastal Commission might be willing to just help us out with some funding to get that put together.
And I believe the management team is meeting tomorrow. Yeah. So in essence, this is almost the cart before the horse, right?
The management team.
The Churai management team then consists of the Coastal Conservancy, the commission, and so on and so forth. So we'll certainly have more information from them as well. Other questions? Comments? Let me bring it out to the public. I don't know who's on. Tristan and Becky. Any public comment at this point?
Yeah, I have the. Oh,
Let's go with Bryce and then Tristan. Yep.
Thanks. Bryce Kenny, 462 Ocean, Trinidad. Most definitely should reopen Parker Creek Trail tomorrow. There's really no danger at all to it. The city is exempt from liability for its trails, both as to the condition of them, the design, everything across the board. They're in better, that one specifically is in much better condition than the state parks right up here. At the mouth of Mill Creek, they've had some terrible slumping and all kinds of earth movement that, you know, but that's the nature of that environment there where the ocean meets the land, always changing. I happen to have recently read most of the Churai management plan, and I think you're kind of mixing apples and oranges by thinking that the management plan is key to keeping getting trails back open. It doesn't really spend a lot of time talking certainly about the safety of the trails. It's more of the focus is the protection of the village site. With the Axel England Memorial Trail, the focus is on trying to have it as close as possible to the traditional route. And I know there was a few pages about rerouting the bottom portion back into more traditional alignment. So in that regard, I agree with Jack West that Parker Creek could be open, you know, like I said, tomorrow, really. That should be taken down. Axel Lane Trail might require more extensive engineering type work if you're going to actually try to relocate the bottom to a different position. So I really hope, you know, I mean, people are still using the trail. The weather's nice, the beaches are irresistible. And there's really no danger. The bottom 6 feet or so, you have to be a little more careful. But hey, that's part of the fun of walking on trails. Sometimes it's a little bit of a scramble.
Thank you. Oh, that's fine. Okay. Justin?
Yeah, I just wanted to also voice my support for reopening the trails and ending the temporary ban in the more immediate future. And then the city can continue to work on a more long-term solution as well as some short-term solutions. But like I think that was Bill who just said, people are using the trails, and like many of the coastal access trails around here, that last 10 feet or 8 feet is always a little bit hairy. And just like what the land trust does, they have to maintain that last 10 feet every year, a couple of years, as the ocean erodes at the banks and the bluffs, which is just part of the natural process. So I guess in my opinion, my personal opinion, the solution, sort of pending any input from the Churai management team, is I don't feel like we need a big engineered solution even in the long term. I think we can just have a solution similar to what all the other beach access points has, with the peeler poles and the cables and you know, and some rock that gets washed away occasionally, and you just have to get a crew out there every couple of years to fix it up. But I think most people who are walking on these trails, you know, whether it's going down to Old Home Beach or going down to the State Beach or Baker Beach, you know, there's always that sort of harrowing last 10 feet that people have learned to expect around here. And obviously people are still using the trails despite them being closed. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. I believe.
So I would encourage them to be open. To be thoughtful with the sign, you know, like Alex said, I'm sorry. You know, at your own risk. And like Bryce said, they need to be open. The people were there Easter Sunday, the cars were there, they, you know, open around Parker Street, and the whole lot had cars all day. You go down the lighthouse was, and they're looking to go down. So the coastal commission said that we have to provide access. So we need to not wait till May, get a little group, get the rocks in, get what Bryce said to kind of get it going, at least get Parker open. I mean, I can't. People know what to do, but I think if there's a sign that gives them some guidance, then it would be okay. But you know, people come up here all the time. They want to go to the sunrise service Sunday. You know, there was, and you know, so we encourage you to, you know, move quickly and. Is the meeting with the chair's not open?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Don.
See you.
I am on Sunburn, Trinidad Rancheria, and we just feel like we should have some input on the decision making with trail access. And you know, we do agree with the temporary closure, but in hopes to open these trails up as soon as possible. I was down there with Eli and a couple other folks. We were kind of trying to figure out some ways to get those open, and there was people accessing those trails while we were there. And yeah, like other people are saying, it's a beautiful, irresistible area that you're not going to keep people. So, all is if Trinidad Rancheria could provide input and be a part of the process, we appreciate it.
Thank you. And technically, you just did provide input, so thank you for that. Other public comment? Diane, are you causing troubles back there?
Yeah.
You got to go to the principal's office, young lady. Other, I knew I'd start something when I said that. Other public comment? We're kind of down to the skeleton crew. Let's bring it back to the council for recommended action.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah, please.
You know, if we were to say, let's open this trail up, and maybe you can help me with this. What do you see as, or would it be something where people are walking on a trail and you're trying to improve it? Would you be able to do work on it while people are walking up and down the trail and try to, you know, you've got 1 month we're talking about to try to get this trail ready for a regular, to completely open up and not even have signs on it. What kind of a timeline are we looking at? How hard is it to get that trail repaired? Do you have an idea? I'm curious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Parker Creek Trail, when we accessed it, it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
The accident, the axle lingering is fairly bad, but you know, like if anybody else around here accesses the Baker Beach Trail or other trails, and soon they, you know, park. They're all about the same. There's you have to have some technical ability to kind of navigate the last portion, 8-10 feet of these. So,
And just for context, I think everybody's interested in rerouting the bottom of the trail, the Axel Lindgren Trail. I heard from folks that in essence, this is my interpretation, so take it with a grain of salt. People were tired and they just took the easy route for the last 20 feet and went straight down the hill, knowing that they should have gone left or right or wherever it was, following the old route, but for a later day. And that was 20 years ago, right? So we all agree that the last 20 feet of the Axel Lindgren Trail was never really meant to be. And it's one of those things where it's worked, but we'll get to that point later. But I'm hearing that the Parker Creek Trail is pretty solid.
I guess I want to finish this up by just saying, I think they're going to have to do work on the trail. I'd like to see that thing completely ready to go for the summer. So if people need to work on it, I'd like to see the trail being able to be closed while working, so I know so we get it done properly as a short-term fix, so we can have things nice now. So what would be that we could let them know that we would like to have it open immediately, but we would be willing to have it closed for repairs. So they can mark it off, that would give them time to repair it, and we want to have.
Who is they?
Whoever they pick, they said they have a meeting tomorrow that could begin talking about what needs to be done, and let's get this done, and we can, we need to close the trail to get the work done so they can make the trail nicer for summer. I just think we can say it's going to be open, except when you're working on it.
And you had a question earlier. I wanted to make sure you had a chance to air that.
Yeah, I was listening to what Bryce says, and I've been down there too, and it's a little dicey, that last stretch, but it's not that bad. However, if the Sharon want us to wait, that is an argument that is persuasive to me. But wait a month is one thing. Wait until it's fixed, then it's going to be a month. Because the talking probably would take 2 or 3 weeks. And then anyhow, so if we are going to defer opening, if the vote is going to be to defer opening, to me, the reason would be in order to be as cooperative as we can with the Sharon and follow their lead, but only to certain points.
Okay. That's Jack.
People are going to use it whether you open it or not. So keep it, for this month period and we'll put the sure. Yeah. We use it.
Ms. Kelly, do you want to speak up or?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I only say that because, right, she lives on the trail and wants to keep the decision process clean. And so, and you're a resident and we're talking about more than just the Parker Creek Trail. So I guess I just want to provide an opportunity should you want to
That's true.
chime in.
It's a good point. Not speaking about the Parker Creek Trail, but speaking about Axel Lindgren and the respect for the tri management team process. I would be in favor of continuing to work through the process with the tri management team and making sure that they're comfortable with the opening timeframe. But yeah, I wouldn't speak to any specific.
Okay. And I'm definitely hearing that, again, we're kind of a victim of our own timing in that there's an important meeting tomorrow where some more information will be shared and whatnot. So I'm wondering if we take this discussion and direct city staff to share our thoughts with the management team tomorrow with the intent of opening the Parker Creek Trail. So I'm just summarizing what I'm hearing. That the Parker Creek Trail is in a lot better condition. The Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail is not, and the erosion is still considerable where the property interfaces with the tide line. And so we want to protect all these things. I really, it sounds like if we could take this discussion to the management team tomorrow, then we can, that way we're including the voice of the folks who are not, I don't see anybody from the society here at the meeting. So that we've just been having these unfortunately separate discussions. Now, tomorrow would be an opportunity to bring them all. So I would urge us to take this meeting and ask Eli to share that with the team tomorrow and look for recommendations with the intent of opening the Parker Creek Trail. Sounds like that one's a much easier ask. But we also need to make sure that we're respecting the whole picture. And to Bryce's comment about apples and oranges, absolutely. We are trying to consider apples and oranges at the same time, right? The safety of the trail, the security of the study area, the city's responsibility to steward that land and make sure that it's protected as much as possible, right? So a lot of things are happening here, and I agree with it.
Yeah, the only thing I would add in general is that the storms that we experienced this year, we haven't seen the likes of since the 1980s. And there is just devastation everywhere you go. So, to the earlier comment about Sumig, there are trees down all over the place, the roads are closed. I mean, we're not unusual in that we have some shoring up to do. So I think it's just a process that we have to go through.
So what do we do then?
I think
we back up at the May meeting?
Yep, that we've directed city staff to take this discussion, encapsulate it with the management team tomorrow, and then in May we'll make that decision on the trails and on the actual things and money that the city is going to spend to start working on this. So do you have enough from us, Eli, to head into that meeting tomorrow?
Sure.
You need any clarification?
Well, what I'm thinking of would be as far as we'll have the meeting tomorrow, but in the meantime, before the May meeting, I would like to, if there's the recommendation to do certain improvements, to go ahead and get started with those improvements, and certainly not to wait until May for a council decision.
Absolutely. We've already earmarked 20. Is it 20 or 30,000?
It's between 20 and 30. But the reason I'm saying that is we've set it for at least I think we've set it for 3 budget sessions because I can't remember. Yeah, I think it's 3. Okay, 30,000. Good.
So yes, the city has already approved the spending of that money on trails, and so yeah, if there's things that we can get in motion now, by all means.
Right.
By all means.
Yeah, and the.
Focusing on Parker Creek, I think is the, right, I hate to say this, the low hanging fruit. I said I'd never say that. It's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
The Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail requires considerable more effort and discussion in conjunction with all kinds of partners. So let's focus on the Parker.
Yeah, the way I see it is basically we're ideally focusing on the beach and the beach access.
Yeah.
And figuring that the Parker Creek Trail is the best way to get down there.
Yep.
If we can have both, fine. If not, at least one open,
Yep.
so we have beach access.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for that discussion. Thank you everyone in the room for that discussion. And I just want to say, since I have the floor, we keep talking about this work party to get these trails up to shape every year. You know, let's keep that idea open, that if we've got a workforce, I know there's a lot of willing people that would put some time and effort into partnering with the Ancestral Society, the Rancheria, the Yurok tribe to make sure that we're doing it in the right way on our property. But we've got this ability and we've got this interest. So Tristan, I see that your little yellow hand is up. There we go.
Yeah, if I may, I mean, I think something that could be a good long-term solution is just booking a day with the California Conservation Corps. I think those guys are like $4,000 or $5,000 for a day. And like, I mean, you could send them out there right now and they would have both of those trails in good condition in one day. So that's like an economical option for in terms of like long-term planning, or, I mean, even if you want to do some short-term work, I feel like they're pretty available for projects like this.
Do you have any good connection? Because I've reached out to the Fortuna office several times and not getting a response. I mean, you know, it's a mediocre response, but no commitment.
And if I could just remind everyone that really tomorrow's meeting is with the management team is where we are going to start making these hard decisions. So let's not start calling everybody and scheduling work parties until the team has had a chance to.
Yeah, the reason I'm mentioning Tristan is because Jack and I have been trying to get some repair on the Trinidad headstone.
Got it.
And getting the California Conservation Corps there. So I don't know if Steve might have a good connection, but I have contacted the Fortuna office several times.
Okay.
Try to run for, if they have, connections. And then the Baker Beach, they had the conservation group do that. Or Lovingboat Beach, so there's some background.
I can get you guys a contact for somebody.
All right, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Tristan.
Yeah.
Do you have a closing comment, Mr. Madrone?
Yes, absolutely.
Fabulous.
Put some confinements on it, thanks.
Yeah.
I would just say that Eli, if you want to send me a note by email, I would absolutely follow up with you.
Good.
Good work for you at the CCCs. But also, you ought to be keeping the Coastal Conservancy, close at hand too, because they have significant funding. They've always supported trails in Trinidad and County. If you haven't had recent conversations with them, your 30 grand could become 60 grand, pretty quickly. Doesn't happen overnight, but they can move more quickly on these kinds of things than just about any other state agency. And while $30,000 seems like a lot, my estimation, having been on both these trails recently, is that Parker Creek might take several days for a crew of 10 people to get it up to shape. But Axel Lindgren is probably a week to 2 weeks worth of work, especially that bottom 40 feet that is subject to not just tide, but storm surge, along with liquids coming down the slope and such. So I think it's much bigger than 30 grand to get both these trails up to snuff. And so it's not too late to really be asking the Conservancy as well. And I'd be happy to put in a good word there. Send me an email.
Yeah, I'll send you an email.
Thank you.
And just to note that the tribe management team consists of the Coastal Conservancy.
Right.
And they've already talked about pledging between 30 and 40,000 but specifically to work with the, to work on the action one.
So is it Sue Quarterly that you work with?
Yes.
She's great. Okay, good. Thank you, sir.
And that's great, because that's, added resources then. All right, so we're at the point of our meeting where we talk about future topics. Thank you, Steve, by the way, and everyone. We're at the point where we talk about future agenda items. Is there anything anybody would like to tee up, Jack West?
Right now, just saying, steps to the edge. Yes, no,
Steps
it's
to
talk to about the money going, where the money's gonna go, and we've been talking about this for a while, so I would like to see if maybe we can move on that and see if we get a kind of a cost study and see, and try to get money set aside, because we've talked about that, we haven't started, it's really a mess. We bring that back and have it for next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, as soon as I get the contact info from both Tristan Cole and Steve Madrone, and then we'll utilize that. But yes, it's on top of my list as far as the trails, and because of its condition, it needs to be addressed, and hopefully before.
And it's kind of first
visitor season starts.
Before the summer appears nowhere else.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I mean, if we had a proposal, I mean, it would be up to the city council, but it seems like we would want to go ahead and spend the funds to get something in. So if you have a
Push
plan
that through, and we've already said that was a priority, and
Yes.
we talked about, so I think the big thing is to come back and see if we actually can do it. So
exactly.
hopefully next month.
Yeah, I think we would welcome a proposal for that for sure. Other, I had dogs. We'll be talking about dogs in the future again, so we'll have an update on that. I'd like to do some sort of a citywide survey, but I don't know if I'll put that out as an agenda item. Maybe I can work on a draft, or we can work on a draft collectively and then have the city council review it to get a broader input from folks in the community and see kind of what's top of mind these days.
What they're caring about.
Yeah, what they're caring about. So just a short, like a survey monkey survey of, 10 or so questions, and, we can structure them as we did back in 2014. A survey, and just kind of do a checkpoint on what's working, what's not.
You mentioned the specific thing with the steps, but also trails in general.
Yeah, another trails update.
We'll have we'll have the meeting, so I'll have information for the next meeting. I'm on the trails committee, and we're gonna have a meeting next week.
Speaking of the Sharai closed.
Okay, I don't care everything.
Anything else, guys? Any other topics? That's a topic.
Well, I'm just thinking, I drove scenic today. Gotta love that road, and all the signs, they're all falling over, but they all say no parking 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. And this city 1,000 years ago agreed to look at overnight parking at a couple different locations. And I know that we had some challenges getting our ordinance or proposed ordinance through the Coastal Commission. We're heading back into summer, and I just want to bring that back to people's minds for discussion. And so if we could resurrect that topic with an update of what the city decided to do, and then the response from the Coastal Commission on closure times. Remember, they said only from 12 to 2 or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
So just because it's going to happen again, it's going to come up. I saw the vans parking out there this morning. I'm assuming they were there overnight. I just want to bring that back as we go back into summer.
Maybe that's not to pile on that topic, but could we maybe add the speed signs too? Do we want to talk about that too?
Well, I believe Josh is coming with all kinds of recommendations, right? And I don't know if I forget when that was supposed to be. Does anyone?
Maybe that's just a topic on its own then.
The speed, traffic calming.
Yeah, because we were going to check and see if we needed another sign on Ocean. So it was a pretty.
When was he coming back? Was he coming back in June?
Oh, I can look at my notes.
I think it was June when he was going to be able to come back with some traffic calming.
Yeah, by the way,
recommendations.
Karen Reese realized there was one speed limit sign on Ocean. So it was kind of buried, but it's a 15 mile an hour sign.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
she lives on the street at Dry and she never even noticed.
Yeah.
because it's so.
Yeah, and Bryce walks the street all the time. So they're saying just the one sign that's 15 miles per hour. Is that your recollection? Okay.
If you're driving towards the ocean,
Right.
is a direction.
Yeah.
I thought you were accusing him of breaking the 15-mile limit when he was walking.
On my bike, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, traffic calming. I can't remember what Josh said he would be able to bring us a pile of recommendations. I don't know if that's either.
I'm looking at my notes from last meeting and I didn't show a particular date.
Yeah, maybe he didn't say, but okay. Well, so that's one, I think we just need to, yeah, maybe bring that back, because we didn't close on the traffic humps or bumps.
Yeah.
Or the signs for speeds.
But we did
Speeds
agree
limits
that,
different.
that we wanted to, like, folks were offering to put speed bumps in front or humps or whatever in front of their house as pilots. And so let's try to bring that back, because it's right going into summer again, it's going to be on everybody's mind, and it'd be nice to.
Yeah, the overnight parking.
Yep.
All right, that's it. I think we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Never since.
Recording stopped.
I didn't see that. Just shows you how.
I was thinking about putting the. Ask for water.